Hello and welcome to Audiolog 8, Tomorrow's Twisted Things. Out of everything I've experienced over my years, nothing has left me more hopelessly powerless. I can't prevent the worm spread. I haven't even been called to do my job. They found no explorable caves and thus I'm rendered technically useless. There's a hole located almost directly in the center of the dig site. There is no calculable end to it, and today it grew bigger. Massively and visibly bigger, accompanied by the ground rumbling in terrified anticipation. Whatever long-forgotten deity lay beneath the ground is either on her way up, or making access to herself easier. I've seen dozens of the infected workers huddled around the gaping ground, listening, whispering, and plotting. I've heard her voice echo out from that place, resonating in the air. It's a high-pitched, musical, and terrible noise. Even just experiencing its vague, wall-restricted messages causes my ears excruciatingly painful discomfort and occasional bleeding. I am scared to leave my room, for I know they are plotting my eventual death. The man in charge of the project is the creature's personal messiah, and we are the only losers in their game. I have no idea how many people are infected. It's become impossible to tell. Everyone seems sickly, including myself. Throughout the night, there are many eldritch noises from the sick. Some are easy to make out and determine the cause of, such as the faint banging of heads against hard concrete walls. Others, however, are much more incomprehensible, such as the gut-wrenching screams infected workers are capable of. Screams that cannot be made with uninfected human vocal cords. I do not know what scares me more, the absence of information on the worms and their queen, or what I've learned of their varying abilities. I fear I may be more infected than I previously assumed. I can understand the goddess's vague whispers on the air. I can taste her words. She wants me to cast myself into the excavation site's abyss-resembling hole. If fortunate, I'd be able to claim my obliviousness to the other workers' susceptibility to her call, but I know for definitive fact that they hear it louder than I do. I am lucky to have removed the worms from my arm, for I've seen both genders clawing at their ears in feverish denial, refusing to let the parasites lead them to their queen. Unfortunately, I have also seen the more susceptible amongst the mass, who will wait until the darkest hours of the night to follow the queen's orders. I've seen workers marching in groups to the ground's square maw, who all leave their clothes and earthly possessions behind before casting themselves in. Henry Ellis, the aforementioned messiah of squirming parasites, tried to get me near the hole. He wanted me to actively search for a cave that leads into the suicide magnet so we can discover what's down there. Internally, I scoffed at his gross proposition. At this point, whether he was told by his malevolent god or finally connected the dots in his brain, I figured he knew I was his enemy and was purposely trying to expose me to his god's supposed greatness. I'd done everything in my power to keep myself isolated, refusing to make contact with anyone out of fear of contracting a parasite with the terrifying ability to control my consciousness. At night, I kept the door to my room and the excavation company's complex barricaded. I barely slept anymore either. I reallocated that time to observation, as the excavation site truly comes to life when blanketed by stars that watch without judgment. Night was when I saw people casting themselves into the void. It was when I heard workers banging their heads against the walls of the complex, wandering with bloodied feet and nails to trace their paths. It was when I saw men, far below my window, staring directly at me with a profound hunger to convert me. I wish I could say that there was no longer an investigative part of me, but questions still clawed through my subconscious. Enough curiosity to kill 10 dozen cats wanted me to answer the Queen's call and stare into the abyss. If I was sure that nobody would push me, I might even listen to the Queen's maddening requests. I knew my only two accomplices in all this watched through my eyes, in the same fashion as any of the infected, but I had heard nothing from them. I found myself missing the sickening scent of cigarette smoke and the guilt I felt when around Jackie's body, which sat eyeless with puffed out purple veins. Only now I dared to wonder if it hurt to live in such a condition. Curiously, I also wondered what abilities the worms granted her while they resided in her eyes, and further, what abilities were being concealed by the group members involved with the excavation. I'd seen the infected completely change their structural composition, turning humans into twisted beasts. Beasts with sharp, overexposed bones piercing through their flesh, reorganized organs, throbbing muscle, and stretched features. A part of me was terrified that these beasts still had a piece of their original consciousness somewhere held up in the background of their brain, watching, feeling, and enduring what the worms brought onto them. A crying eye staring through a painful storm that was once themselves. To think that I had almost ended up that way sent a stronger fear than just shivers through my body. One oddly quiet night amongst the paranoid many, a heavy knock interrupted my regular observation. A knock that rose into an echoing pounding. I stood, frozen, staring at my chair-barricaded door. Each knock caused an interruption in the chair's stillness, which I knew would take an absurd amount of force. A scratchy voice spoke from beyond. "Open the door, Donovan, or I'll tear it off its hinges." My blood ran cold, and I creeped towards the door, fearing what stood before it. Cautiously, I removed the chair from under the handle. With trembling hands, I removed the locks as slow as possible. My hand wrapped around the door handle but did not move. "What do you want?" I asked, fear radiating off of my words like heat from a flame. "The Queen requests an audience, Mr. Howard." Whatever lay beyond began to scratch at the wood of the door following its statement. The scratching was loud and sounded as if it had been done with something sharp enough to puncture the material. I pressed my ear against the door, listening to the creature's distorted breaths, and the wet dripping of blood off of twisted flesh. I had no choice but to continue for it. In something resembling an out-of-body experience, I felt myself slowly twist the handle and pulled the door open.